Let's look next to Washington. There's Capitol Hill, and again, a focal point for us today. Donald Trump's defense team gets its turn at his Senate impeachment trial. His lawyers are set to begin their opening arguments at noon Eastern. And as our senior Washington editor, Lindsay Duncombe, tells us, Trump's team will have 16 hours for those arguments, but they may not use all the allotted time.
I think one of the things we will be hearing a lot about is Donald Trump's speech on January 6th, ahead of when the mob moved to the Capitol. That was central to the Democrats' argument that it was Donald Trump's words that incited the mob in this one article of impeachment, incitement of insurrection. What Donald Trump's lawyers will say is that what Donald Trump said was protected speech under the First Amendment of the Constitution, and they will accuse the Democrats of being selective with their video editing because they did not highlight the fact that at one point in the speech, Donald Trump did mention that protesters should be peaceful. And one of Donald Trump's lawyers, who is expected to take the lead, a handover of leadership after that much panned performance the other day, left the proceedings on the floor of the Senate yesterday to talk strategy with Fox News. Here's what he had to say.
Look at the words of the speech. Why do we ignore the word peacefully? Why do we ignore the context in which the word fight is used during the course of it to cheer on legislators to have courage and that sort of thing?
We can also expect that there will be video in today's presentation on that same line of argument. We expect that the lawyers for Donald Trump's defense will show Democratic lawmakers using words like fight in political speeches. It's worth noting, though, Heather, that 150 constitutional lawyers, when they read the briefs and saw this was the argument that Donald Trump's lawyers are going to be using, put out an open letter saying that using the First Amendment is not appropriate constitutionally in an impeachment proceedings. Another development that has happened is that 3 Republican senators actually met with the defense lawyers for Donald Trump to talk about procedure, they say. That is raising concerns from the Democrats because of the way that the proceedings are unfolding. And as you mentioned, this will only be a few hours, is what they're hinting at, and could wrap up this evening.
And if it does, what do we watch for next?
Well, then the question is we move to questions. Now, if this is just a few hours, we could even get to senators' questions today. Then there's the idea of, will there be witnesses called? There's no indication that there will be witnesses called. So we could be looking at potentially, closing arguments from both sides and a vote as soon as tomorrow, if not over the weekend at some point. The question, will enough Republicans be convinced to vote against the President of the United States to convict Donald Trump? A highly, highly, highly unlikely scenario, as we keep saying. But certainly there are Republicans who say they are undecided. One of them is the Republican senator from Louisiana. Here's what he had to say.
You don't make a decision as a juror until you hear both sides. Period. End of story. And so that's why if you ask me the questions I wish to have addressed, I would like to have those addressed. But I don't make a decision until I've heard the other side.
The argument that the Democrats made is that if there is no conviction, no punishment for Donald Trump, then it opens the door for him to run again and for this to potentially happen again, or for some other president to have similar behavior. If Trump were to be convicted, and that is an absolute long shot, there could be a second vote that would ban Donald Trump over whether or not to prevent Donald Trump from running again. And that certainly was one of the things that the Democrats were hitting home in their argument yesterday, Heather.